Welcome to the Parks and Cons Con Talk, where we bring you news from the very best in pop culture conventions and take you to the heart of the floor of some of our favorites. I'm Carmel, and this is my co-host Sean.
Hey guys, it is great to be back for another episode of Con Talk. We're going to be talking about some fun stuff today, so glad you're tuning in. First up, we are going to go to Coming to a Con Near You. This is our news segment where we pick 3 or 4 pieces of news that have happened in the last couple weeks in the convention world and bring them to you. It is not a comprehensive source of all news. It's just some of the things that caught our eye, so always feel free to jump in the comments section here on our YouTube channel to let us know if there's things we missed that you want us to talk about in future episodes. So what's up first on the list?
Well, first up, the San Diego Comic-Con hotel sale came and went with a number of issues that left social media stirring for the last few weeks. In addition to concerns about how randomization occurred, OnPeak threw out duplicate submissions based on 3 factors: phone number, email address, or unique identifier associated with the user's queue or waiting room session, which is likely that queue ID that was at the bottom of the page in the waiting room. Thoughts on all this?
Well, if you are even on the perimeter of anything related to San Diego Comic-Con, you know that was a huge topic over the last few weeks. We talked about going into the hotel sales last time. There's a reason that it's earned the nickname Hotel Apocalypse because it is such a crazy time. We've talked about we stay on the outskirts of things. That said, we did enter the lottery, and that did not go well for us. Do you want to talk about that?
Well, I got in there. When the randomization occurred, I believe, I had 2 web browsers open. The first one popped up and it was, I think, 7,600 something, which I thought was pretty good, especially since we weren't trying for the gas lamp hotels and we were just trying for more of the outskirts ones. So I thought our chances were pretty good. Our second session, when it did pop up, it was 10,000 something, but I thought between the 2 we still had a decent shot to get in there, but it did not pan out. We both got emails that said that we were on wait lists, and yeah, that's the last that we've heard.
Yeah, and so I'd highly recommend, and we talk about this whenever it comes to San Diego Comic-Con news, to head over to sdccblog.com because they have a full, they followed it step by step, blow by blow. They've talked about it on the podcast over there. They did get OnPeak, the formerly travel planners that works with all the hotels situation in San Diego. They got CCI to give some information. That's where we really have those tidbits, and they have a lot more there. But at the end of the day, I think my biggest comment on, it's done and over. We're moving on. I'm always the type to kind of let's look forward to next year and talk about it. The biggest, I think, disappointment is just that there was a lack of clarity on what the rules, the idea that things were thrown out because of duplicates, this or that was not really made clear beforehand. It really felt like people were making things up as they went along the way, and CCI was very quiet on it. They basically deferred everything to OnPeak, and that's a tough situation, obviously, because San Diego Comic-Con is the king of the cons. We talk about it all the time, and as such, there's kind of a responsibility there to fully follow through on that. Hotels are, to many, a bigger deal than the con itself. And again, to you and I, we stay on the outskirts. We figured it out. We've booked other rooms. We've got a few different things pending. We'll be fine staying out on the outskirts, but for a lot of people, that is their entire con experience. They're taking a week off from work. They're spending thousands of dollars to fly out, and then the fact that maybe your hotel bid was disqualified because of something that you didn't know was going to be an issue is really kind of heartbreaking / gut-wrenching. It's why people have such paranoia and angst whenever you mention the word San Diego Comic-Con, is because of exactly things like this. The biggest frustration on the convention floor is when there are rule changes, as an exhibitor says, well, here's the rules for getting exclusives, and then they change it midway through, and that's what it really feels like happened here, is en masse, and it was so loud because social media just lit up because so many were impacted. Now, according to OnPeak, more people got their first choice than in the past, so they have several stats to claim success, but definitely this is not a vocal minority on social media. This is a vocal majority that had great problems with it, a lot of unprofessional behavior on OnPeak's side in terms of how they handle things, and that just hopefully doesn't happen again. I don't see how that can happen when you're talking about a show the size of this that has the resources that they have. It just, it really can't happen. And so I'm hoping that, there's a lot of notes taken for this year, that things are figured out as we go to next year, and that we hopefully have a better hotel sale in 2017.
Yeah, I think in general it's just the worst when the organizers don't have the answers or don't want to share the answers. My guess is they, to some degree, didn't know themselves what they were doing necessarily, or didn't even know why some things got thrown out. I mean, I got concerned at some point after thinking, oh my gosh, I used the same email address for us. But our home addresses were duplicated, but I must not have used the same email because we both got our separate emails on our separate accounts. And yeah, it's just always nerve-wracking. Like I said, or like you said, I was able to find us some other rooms, so we'll be fine. We're always okay when the rooms come. I mean, we've had times in the past where we've stayed 30, 45 minutes away from the convention center for whatever reason, and we still enjoy ourselves and still make the best of it. We've had horrible rooms where the mattresses were sunken in, but because it was Comic-Con, we didn't even have a choice of finding anything different once we got there. So we've had a vast experience with the rooms, and we'll be fine, of course. But yeah, it's just frustrating when you can't get straight answers, and when you don't know all the rules coming into it. There's no reason that we should have not known
everything.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this on over the years, if you followed along with us, whether it's a show like Creation Entertainment, what they do with something like Trek Vegas, or Gallifrey 1, where they don't allow recording in the panel rooms. We always talk about, like, as boring as it is, we just follow the rules. We're very okay with, you set your rules out. We may not like the rules. There's a lot of media things we cover at the parks where they have embargoes till X date. It doesn't make sense to us, but at the end of the day, the rules are what the rules are. So even in this case, if they came out and said, okay, so the rules are that you can't do this, and you can't do this, and you can't do that, and, whatever, you have to stand on one leg and recite the Pledge of Allegiance, whatever the rules are, people play by them, people will complain about them, but people just complain so much more and are so much louder, and everybody's so much more frustrated when the rules change. I mean, the Funko booth at Emerald City, people have been talking about that, the Funko booth at San Diego Comic-Con. These are places where there's just no consistency, and so with On Peak, they just really did not have a consistent message throughout, and they're very quiet. CCI was even more quiet. So again, hopefully there was a lot of notes taken. It gets addressed for next year. They've got to know the volume that they're dealing with, and they find a good way, even if it's just handwriting out your preferences and putting them in the mail and time stamping them that way or whatever. It doesn't have to even be an online system if that can't handle it. But at the end of the day, knowing the rules, communication, transparency, all things we're big fans of when it comes to whether it's the parks or the cons, for sure. So.
Absolutely.
Speaking of San Diego,
Syfy is the latest to join the SDCC coverage game, as they've announced that Syfy Presents Live from Comic-Con is going to be their series that will air nightly Thursday, July 21st through Saturday, July 23rd at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, where Syfy will bring viewers nonstop action directly to viewers across the country, featuring celebrity interviews, breaking news, and behind-the-scenes reports, and much more. Are you excited that Syfy is joining the coverage game?
I am. I mean, we used to always record G4. G4 was kind of the one that was out there. TNT's done some. I mean, there's been a lot of dabbling, and there still is a little dabbling, a little half-hour special here, hour special there, but I love that. I mean, it used to be back in probably 2009, 2010, one of my Comic-Con tips was recording the G4 coverage, just so you had something to kind of celebrate throughout the year as you had your San Diego Comic-Con withdrawals. So yeah, I'm all for Syfy or anyone else getting on board with more coverage in that way, putting together kind of their own unique take on it. It's interesting because this obviously also fits with what CCI themselves is doing in joint. We talked about that on this show before with Lionsgate and their HQ, yeah, and streaming panels, not live Hall H panels or anything like that, but kind of giving their own take. I mean, the more that you can share this, the better. I know a lot of people were fans of what happened at WonderCon with DC Entertainment and the Rebirth panel. The fact that you could be at home in New York City, Maine, Pittsburgh, Seattle, wherever, and watch Jeff Johns, Dan Didio, and the rest of the crew talk about that. And I think that is great. I mean, interestingly, you and I don't really watch a ton of panels online. I mean, I don't watch panels online at all. When we do podcast sharing, that we don't, but we do get people that enjoy that. We know there's a big audience for that, and I do like this type of coverage where it's not necessarily one specific panel, but it will be a collection of highlights from each day or throughout the weekend. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and definitely we'll be setting the DVR to record it, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully you've already put in your planner, because that's the type of thing that you do to set the DVR to record that. But yeah, it sounds like fun. No reason why not to cover it and share the experiences. It's kind of what we try to do in our own way, and so by all means, let's be able to come back and watch it, and we can sit there and make sure, see if we're anywhere on the screen. I usually make sure that I'm not anywhere, because I generally avoid the cameras.
Right.
But yeah, it's always kind of fun to look back and see what other people experienced, and we've discussed it before. It's impossible by any stretch of the imagination to experience everything that Comic-Con has to offer. So if Syfy can bring us a different taste of it, sounds good to me.
Definitely, definitely.
Cool. So our last news item is that Gallifrey ticket sales came and went this last Saturday, April 16th. And although they sold out in under an hour, it wasn't quite the frenzy of last year. Is interest in the show cooling, do you think?
Well, and so since we wrote the script for that, they've said about 2 hours, but somewhere in that hour, 2 hours. I know you were online immediately. Did you have the tickets bought like in the first minute or two?
Yeah, by 2 after 12, I had already texted you a picture of the confirmation that we had our tickets. So yeah, probably within the first minute and a half, I had tickets. And
we did that online. You did that at Disneyland, so we had not the most ideal circumstances, but that was cool that it worked out. So
yeah, it was when we were at Disneyland, and so kind of walking to the gate and stuff, trying to figure out, okay, so where do I need to be? When do I need to be there? I had kind of been thinking I was going to need to try to do the laptop at one of the hotels and use their Wi-Fi and stuff, but when I was looking at it, it was Eventbrite who they use to sell their tickets, and in my experience, Eventbrite is has a pretty adept mobile site or whatever, and so I thought I'd take the chance and just try doing it on my phone rather than having to leave the park and go get set up an hour before and that whole thing, and it worked well. Eventbrite, I use it for whatever other shows that use it, and so I already had my account set up, and I use Chrome, and so it even pre-filled in or has some of our credit card information stored on there. So it was a very quick process. So I was very impressed and very proud of myself that I got it done in under the 2 minutes. And then was a little disappointed to see that that wasn't necessarily necessary, since the tickets didn't sell out that quickly like they did last year.
Well, and I think what's cooled a little bit is the interest in Doctor Who. A tad bit, at least in America. Obviously, there was a real peak there with Matt Smith and that crew that kind of, just caught the zeitgeist there. Not to say that Doctor Who's going anywhere overall in popularity, but we're in an off year. There's not going to be any new Doctor Who till the Christmas special. And we know several people that decided to sit out the sale. And I don't think it was anything more than just there isn't this real strong hunger. They don't, obviously with Gallifrey, we never know the guest in advance. So there's, with it not being on TV, with there not being guests announced, I think there's just a few more people that are like, maybe we'll wait, maybe we'll see. I think everybody that wanted to go knows it's going to be sold out that day at this point. I mean, it's a great convention. It's definitely not a commentary on the convention at all, and even regardless, selling out at all, let alone in 2 hours, is pretty amazing. I mean, it's a 3,300 person show, so it's not a huge con, but it's a great con, a fun con. I know there's a lot of people that wouldn't miss it. I know for us, we've got a bunch of conflicts with other cons that weekend, and we'll figure it out, but we still want as much as possible to be a part of it. So I think it speaks a little bit more, just more broadly, to the state of Doctor Who in America right now, or maybe Doctor Who internationally right now in an off year. There just isn't quite as much of a hunger. Now, if they announce David Tennant's going to be there in a couple months, people are going to be kicking themselves and super upset, and I would guess the next year it'll sell out all that much faster, or who knows, maybe just because Doctor Who's going to be back on TV by around the time of ticket sales for the 2018 show, it'll heat up as well. But no, I don't think the con's gonna, go anywhere anytime soon in terms of being less filled. I think it's gonna be at capacity for a long time. It just may not be selling out in 5 minutes or so as it has in the past. But still, congrats to Gallifrey. One, it's a great show, great job to sell it out in one day, and I know we look forward to checking it out in February of 2017.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, two things that come to my mind as we're discussing is, one, I wonder if there's a slight part of people who've never been don't fully understand how great it is because they don't allow us to share so many of the things
Right.
at the convention. Perhaps if they did allow people to share their the panels and stuff, then maybe more people would realize how cool it is, what a great convention is. Granted, they sold out anyway, so it doesn't
Yeah.
matter, but that might be part of it. And then also people who were paying for their San Diego hotels, I think were paying around the same time that
Sure.
these tickets went on sale. So if
That's a
you're
good
not
point.
affluent, you might have had to make the decision, do I pay for my hotel for San Diego or do I get my galley tickets?
Yeah.
And that may have been part of it too. But like I said, it's a great con. They sold out regardless, and they've sold out for several years now, and
Yeah.
they'll probably continue to sell for many, many more years to come. So,
Right.
yeah, great
Okay.
for them, and it's an okay process.
Go. All right, so let's turn from our news segment to Under the Con. And Under the Con is our segment where we go underneath the hood of the conventions to see what makes them tick. We try in many cases to share footage with you. We definitely will today to show you a little bit of the show. Today we are talking about Days of the Dead Los Angeles. And Days of the Dead Los Angeles, this was our first year attending it. It is a horror show for sure. It's part of a sequence, so they've got, I believe, 5 of them. There's in Atlanta, I think Milwaukee. So they're spread out across the country. So it's not, a full-on, convention company in the terms of something like a Wizard or, I don't know. There's a Creation, for example. But they definitely are a larger company that puts on a variety of shows. And this one was our first time attending. It was at the Burbank Marriott, which is a place we're very accustomed to checking out. It was 3 days, so that was nice. It had Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It was $75 for the 3 days. And it had a good, busy floor. I mean, it's a compact floor with the Burbank Marriott, but a lot of stuff, a good variety of types of vendors, from crafts to authors to autograph signings, t-shirts, pops, toys, posters, all those things. So why don't we take you to the floor to take a look at Days of the Dead Los Angeles.
Actors act. They don't distinguish between a movie or a soap or an episodic or a drama. They act. And I said, you got a point there. So I thought about it for a couple of days, and then they came back again. And I thought, well, maybe I'm supposed to do this thing. And I thought, wow, you cut your teeth. It's kind of coming full circle. Because I remember I used to work as an extra and under 5 guy in New York on All My Children, and there was a soap called The Edge of Night I worked on many times. I'd be a waiter in one thing, and then 3 weeks later I'd be who knows what, but you barely saw me. I'd be a guy sitting in a restaurant eating. So, what the hell was the question?
Guys, let's have any questions. Sorry, guys. Lots of new stuff.
Hello. How are you doing? And then he goes, come on, please, don't be my daughter. I was taking a picture. I'm like,
Yeah, let's see how the picture is too.
yeah.
I mean, just look, just if you go to the website, it'll take you straight to the answer. But yes. Yeah.
Hopefully you enjoyed that look to get a little bit of a feel for the show. I mean, you know, you talked about it earlier in terms of like the media, the more that's out there, the more that you get to know what a show is. And this is a show just I hadn't come across on really social media, hadn't come across it on YouTube. I'm sure there's lots out there, but I just didn't know really what a great show it was. I had a lot of fun at this convention. It was a really fun little weekend there. I like a lot they do with the vibe. To break things down on the floor real quick, we have some little portions that we talk about with the show. So first off, swag exclusives. There really wasn't any exclusive except for a shirt. No real freebies there, too much of anything like
I
that.
think maybe a vendor or two had, you know, individual little piece here to there, but not too much.
Comics, we cover a lot of Comic Con, so we usually talk about that, but obviously this being a horror con, that was not really a focus there. Toys, lots of Funko Pops, lots of the reaction figures, Twilight Zone, you know, various dolls that kind of tied into that, whether it was more on the craft end or the kind of vintage toys. There's maybe one or two vendors with that, but mostly Funko Pops and reaction in terms of the toy scene. Guests is a big focus for them, not that it's a pure autograph show, but they did have a number of guests there. Tobin Bell, Fairuza Balk, Tony Todd, Bill Moseley, the sisters from The Shining, a lot of fun autograph opportunities there. We took the time to check out a couple of the actors from Pulp Fiction. It was neat to see the GIMP and them, you know, be able to sign it with that. Just kind of, you know, odd little niche of convention signers there. I mean, most of the guests there we've not seen at conventions very often. Maybe at a Hollywood show, maybe at a Monsterpalooza, but for the most part, definitely not as common as some of the people that we see. It was also neat to see with the floor itself. They had the, what was it, a 48-hour marathon of independent films. And that was really neat to have this film festival that basically at any hour of the night you could roll out of your hotel and find a way to engage. We talk about it all the time, you know, when you have a show that has a good price like this and then they extend beyond the hours of just the floor, because it's so common with conventions to have their, you know, 10 to 5 floor hours and then it just cuts off after that. And this one, it extended to, you know, all hours, so you almost had a 72-hour party there if you really wanted to participate in that way. We drove out, so we weren't staying at the hotel, so we couldn't take full advantage of that. They had a tattoo expo going on. You could check out their artwork or get a tattoo yourself. Some cars outside, a little bit of cosplay. They had a cosplay contest as well, so a variety of things there. You know, so when looking at who should go, the thing that I can do is obviously horror fans for sure, but I'd say more than that, you know, convention fans that have a little bit of a horror side to them, that really like a show that's a little bit slower, a little bit more relaxed pace, but one where you have entertainment. Because I didn't feel like there'd be any point where you felt like there wasn't anything to do if you, especially if you took on the, you know, the various things like the cosplay stuff or the film festival. But it was constant, yet you never felt stressed. It never felt like you were going to have to really rush or, you know, go out of your way. When will they be back? Well, to be determined. It's on their website listed as coming back, but it doesn't have a date. I just checked a few hours before we recorded tonight, but I do anticipate they'll be back soon, or in a year. Should be fun there. You can find more information about them at daysofthedead.net. As well as on our YouTube channel. You can see snippets of things there as well. But I'd say in closing on it, I mean, I really enjoyed it. It's one of those shows that probably we wouldn't have attended if it wasn't for Parks and Cons. Then, much like something like Anime Expo or maybe even Galley 1, because of Parks and Cons kind of pushes us to go, I really enjoy it, and now I can't imagine not checking it out because I had a really good time with it.
Yeah, and this one we did have media access. We didn't actually pay for a ticket, so full disclosure. But yeah, it was a very enjoyable show. I would have liked to have been able to spend a little more time there,
Right.
taken more of the panels, taken more of the, like you said, the movie fest and stuff. But yeah, that all being said, I think you covered it really well. It was small-ish, but there was plenty to do and different vendors to experience and different actors that we don't usually see. So yeah, I look forward to seeing them again next year, hopefully.
Cool. All right, let's move to our last segment.
So our next segment, or our last segment, is our segment that we call Con Tips. This is where we bring you some tips to help improve your future con experiences. Sometimes these tips will be kind of generic, general, just whatever convention tips, and other times they're going to be more specific to a specific convention. This time we're sticking in the general category, and we're talking about how to know if a con will be a good fit for you.
This is a question that comes up a lot for us because we do go cover a show like a Claremont comic show or a Hollywood show, and people are really a lot of times only left with our coverage, and that's it, because there's a lot of these conventions that either don't really ask for media coverage or don't push the media coverage. They don't know how to access it. They don't maybe have their own social media tools to really push much of anything, and so it kind of falls on our shoulders. So we try to do these snippet videos. We try to do overview videos, talk about them on our podcast, maybe Periscope, things like that. But at the end of the day, a lot of times it's left to us to be a guide for people. So that said, I think my number one tip when it comes to this idea, though, of finding a fit for you is being really open-minded to look for the resources. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but our website has a lot of resources there. If you want to check out a Claremont comic show, you can get a really good feel for it. I mean, we update things as frequently as we can, and some things are more outdated than others, but at the end of the day, you can get a really good feel. I don't think you can get a more comprehensive feel of conventions in a 6-7 hour drive of Southern California than our site. At least I haven't seen a place for it. That said, even if there's a show we've not attended, something like SAC Anime, for example, is a show we've not attended. The best way to really engage with it is to head over to YouTube and do some searching there, because a lot of fans will do their own little videos. It may take 10, 15 videos to put together a snapshot of what it is. But I think a big thing for yourself as you're looking at the options for conventions is doing a little probing of what is fun to you, because the thing we always talk about, what helps us to be able to enjoy, is we can go to a miniature toy soldier show, we can go to a Anime Expo, a cosplay con, a comic con, an old school comic, bin diving show, and we're pretty good at having enough different things that interest us that we just kind of change and say, okay, well, that's what this show is. So something like the Yorba Linda comic show, for example, that show, Cal Comic Con, it's really just for digging around in old comics, whether it's wall books or 50-cent bins, and we know that. And we like that. But somebody that maybe's only been to WonderCon and now they're like, hey, I'm going to check out this Comic Con in Yorba Linda, would be very disappointed when it's not that. So I would encourage you, if you do check out a con, first of all, I'd encourage you to check out cons that maybe you think may not fit you. Obviously, time and money are resources that we don't all have enough of. So if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. But if you can, something like the Claremont Comic Show, for example, it's a free show. You can wander down there, see. If you get there and you're not, you didn't follow our stuff and you're surprised that there's not a bunch of cosplay or celebrities there, but there's other things you can engage with. There's customizers there that have all sorts of toys. There's artists there. There's authors there signing their
And if you don't enjoy just that, if you step right outside, there's a movie theater and there's some cool restaurants and nice comic book store down this way. So, and for that one in particular, there's some options.
And that's exactly what we do. Is we always couple it. If we go cover a show at the Pasadena Convention Center, even Robo Toy Fest, I enjoy Robo Toy Fest, but part of what I like about Robo Toy Fest is at the Pasadena Convention Center, there's some great places to eat across the street. parking's easy, there's a movie theater, etc. So yeah, I mean, in going with somebody that you can enjoy it with, obviously we try to attend most shows, as many as possible, at least together. If you have someone else you can go with, that adds to it as well. But making it more of an event, not running into the con for 1 hour, but going in there and trying to soak it up and check things out. Buy some comics, check out some trade paperbacks or whatever. Try to find something in it. I know, Anime Expo is always the show that will probably stand out most to me on covering side. Is a show that going into it, I had no exposure, nothing with manga, nothing with anime really, just nothing. And I think this will be probably the 4th year that I cover it, and each year I've learned a little bit more, appreciate a little bit more, and I found some things. And I mean, so something like Attack on Titan, that's real kind of elementary stuff in that area, but I enjoy it, and it's new to me, and I feel like I'm getting educated every time I go there. And I enjoy that idea of knowing more about anything, but pop culture being one thing, and it's fun to go for those things. So, don't be afraid of checking out these cons, but, the best way to find if it is a good fit for you is just, using those resources, particularly on YouTube, because then you get that visual to go along with it.
Yeah, and in regards to anime, just to, again, full disclosure, those first few years, we did pay for our tickets.
Oh, yeah.
We weren't
Last
there.
year was the first year that we did a press pass, yeah.
Right, so it's not, we don't cover stuff just because, we were given tickets. That one was one that we knew was a big convention. It's very popular. It has a huge, huge attendance. But yeah, it's not anything that we're specifically interested in on our own, but you wanted to learn more about it, so you made the trek out there. And
yeah, in the first 2 or 3 years, I didn't ask for a press pass because I didn't think I knew enough about the area to feel justified in requesting it. You don't, and that's a whole different topic. There's a lot of entitlement on the web these days where people feel like if they have a podcast or a website that they just deserve a press pass or something. And I definitely don't feel that way. I think that you need to earn those press passes with some, history and work, yeah. But that said, no, it's a good show because now I look forward to it. I wish it was a little bit further out from Comic-Con because it's always a little, it's such a huge show and it's right butted up against Comic-Con a couple weeks out. So, but besides that, I just love that show, and it's just a good example of getting out of your comfort zone and trying something out different. And that's, again, why we hit these Hallmark shows and all these random shows. And there's always things that we find there. If you're interested in, Marvel or Star Wars or DC, there's crossover at all of these shows, whether it's an anime show or anything else. And so you can find things there that interest you. But by far, the #1 resource to find out more about these conventions is YouTube. There's definitely videos out there. If nothing else, if it's a con that we cover, there should be some video from us, and you can find that over at parksandcons.com.
Yeah, that's a good advice. Because there are such a broad span of what a convention can be. Like you said, it can be the one small little room to the massive, Comic-Con or whatever. And so having an idea, tempering your expectations is always going to be a good thing. Actually, across the board in life, I think probably tempering your expectations and having some reasonable understanding and really backup plans, because if you do go to a show, it's not what you want, check out the area. Maybe there's something else in the area that fits your interests a little more. So
right,
lots of good ideas.
All right, I think that's enough for this episode of Con Talk. Why don't you tell people where they can find you?
Well, you can reach me directly on Twitter at Connoisseur, which is CON_NOISSEUR, or you can email me at carmel@parksandcons.com.
And you can find me at Twitter at _con_fluence, the Confluence, and also on the Parks and Cons social media, pretty much across those platforms. I'm there. If you're interested in theme park talk, subscribe to this channel. Every other week we have an episode of Park Talk. We alternate that with this episode of Con Talk. So Park Talk and Con Talk, we focus very specifically on that. Also, if you like just this type of talk in general, we go into even more depth over on our podcast. You can find it on iTunes or Stitcher. Just simply search Parks and Cons. We have 140 some episodes there filled with on-the-spot talk from the heart of all the action, whether it be conventions or parks. A little bit different than this where we cover news. There we're really at the heart of the event, talking about it in real time. Also, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Periscope. All of them at Parks and Cons, really simple across all the platforms there. So we're going to wrap up. Again, thank you for joining us, and until next time, we'll see you in line somewhere.